Hi, I'm Rose Reed. Welcome to my kitchen. This is the first of what I hope will be a whole bunch of videos that I think we're going to call book cooks, because how much fun is that? Have you ever been reading a book and they describe some food and you think, ooh, I would just love that. That would be delicious. That happens to me all the time, probably because books and cooking are my two favorite things to do. So we're starting with Nancy Drew, because I happen to have some Nancy Drew books on hand, which I'm holding on to for my granddaughters when they come to visit. And this delightful little piece of history, the Nancy Drew Cookbook by Caroline Keene. There never was a Caroline Keene, of course. It was all ghostwritten. And those women made $125 a book for those books. I think they did about 65 or so of them. And they were in publication from the 1930s right up until 2003 in one way or another. And they've been really well received. Everybody in the world is familiar with Nancy Drew, and particularly ladies like myself who are a little bit on the older side often remember Nancy Drew as being the first chapter books that we ever read. So I had a little look in the Nancy Drew Cookbook, and there was a recipe called brass-bound trunk fudge. How nice is that? And I felt like some fudge, so that's the recipe I've chosen. Now, I'm going to include the original recipe and what I'm doing today in the notes down below, because I live a keto lifestyle, so I don't want to have a whole lot of sugar. So I had to find other ways to do this. What you're looking at here is whipped cream that's been cooked down for about an hour until it's about half the size it was. I started with 2 cups, and we've got 1 cup left here. And what you see here, it's a slightly yellow color now instead of white. And see how those bubbles are just popping up like out of lava or something, and really, really slow. That's exactly the texture that we were looking for. I'm going to leave this to cook just a bit longer while I stir, or while I take care of the nuts. I'm using walnuts because I like walnuts. Never put raw nuts into any recipe. You want to have cooked ones. They taste so much better. The recipe called for walnuts, oatmeal, and coconut. And the last batch I made, I toasted coconut as well as the nuts. And what I'm doing right now is not in the recipe, but it's my taste to have a little bit of salt with my sweet. So I'm adding some salt to these toasted walnuts while they're still warm so it sticks a little bit. I also find one of the best things about this fudge recipe is how smooth the mouthfeel is to it, so I don't really like the coconut in there, so I've left it out. Now, I'm going to grab this, it's turned off good, give it one last stir, and now I'm going to add the chocolate. The original recipe calls for ordinary chocolate chips. I'm using some that are sweetened with stevia because that's better for me. And I'm just going to add the whole package. This is really dark chocolate because that's what I prefer. If you like a sweeter fudge, you could just get the milk chocolate chips and put them in. And of course, if unlike me, you're not averse to a little sugar, you can just use ordinary chocolate chips. And you would also start with just a regular can of Eagle brand, which is really super sweet in and of itself. Look how beautiful and glossy that is. I'm just going to keep stirring until all of the chocolate melts into all of that beautiful thick cream. Now, if you wanted this sweeter, at this point in time, you could add a couple drops more of stevia. I'm not going to do it, but you could do so. This is a special stevia that's also vanilla flavored for baking. But if you use stevia, be very, very stingy with it. It is far, far sweeter than ordinary sugar, and it'll overwhelm something very, very quickly. All right, we don't have any lumps left, and we don't have any cream left in there. Now I'm just going to take and put all of these beautiful walnuts in, just like so. I'm going to give it one last stir, and right beside me I have a pan which I have lined with a little parchment paper. It's a 8x8 pan, and it's the perfect size because you're going to want to cut this 8 times this way and 8 times that way as they come out. I'm not going to do the math. You'll have to do it yourself. Shane, do you know what 8 times 8 is? No, none of us knows what 8 times 8 is. So you just have to figure that math out. It's 64. He said it's 64. So you're going to get a lot of candies with this recipe. And I did the macros for those of you who do keto. That's going to be of interest to you. You get 3 grams of fat and 1 carb for every piece of candy, which is a very nice amount, and you can easily afford to eat a bit. Now, I'm going to put this in the fridge to harden right now. And I've taken a piece out to try because that's what they always do on cooking shows, and why not? Here's what it looks like. You do want to keep this in the refrigerator after you cut it up because there is no sugar in this. It doesn't have the same staying power. Sugar isn't just for making things sweet, it's also a preservative. So this is not going to have the same shelf life as another fudge would. But you want to take it out before you eat it and warm it up to room temperature. And here I go. It's so delicious. The fudge has a gorgeous, silky mouthfeel. It melts in your mouth. The nuts are just a little bit crunchy and salty, and it's absolutely gorgeous. So, I've got some ideas for future videos, but I would love to hear from people. If you like this idea and you have a particular recipe you've always been curious about, send a message, and maybe I'll look into your book and cook something from that. I'm going to try, at least for the duration while we're all unable to get out much, to choose books that you can buy with an audio or get with an audio version from your library or read in an ebook format. As it happens, with your Libby app, you could totally read or listen to a couple of Nancy Drew books with your kids while you were making this. One thing I forgot to mention, which is important, is that it took about an hour to cook down that cream at a really low temperature. You want to do it low and slow so you don't scorch it, and you have to have some patience to get through that, but I know you can manage it. We've all got time on our hands right now. All right, I think that's it. Thanks so much, and I'll see you again soon.